The sound of Marjorie's floral suitcases hitting my hardwood floors echoed through the house like gunshots. 1, 2, 3 massive pieces of luggage, each more garish than the last, now cluttered my previously immaculate entryway. I'm Annabelle, and this is how my mother-in-law declared war. Michael dear, just put those boxes in the guest room, the one with the morning sun. Marjorie's voice dripped honey as she directed my husband. Her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer handbag. Annabelle, you might want to clear some closet space. I brought my whole winter wardrobe. My fingers clenched around the door handle. Winter wardrobe. How long exactly are you planning to stay, Marjorie? Michael appeared behind his mother, arms full of boxes, avoiding my gaze like a guilty child. I knew that look. It was the same one he wore when he forgot to tell me about family dinners or when he gave his sister Laura access to our vacation home without asking me first. Oh, didn't Michael tell you? Marjorie's eyes widened with practiced innocence. The renovation company found black mold in my basement. The whole house needs to be gutted. Could take months to fix properly. The door handle creaked under my grip. No, Michael didn't mention anything about that. Well, I'm sure he meant to. Marjorie glided past me, her expensive perfume leaving a suffocating trail. I thought about staying with Laura, but you know how small her apartment is, and besides, she turned. Fixing me with that razor-sharp smile, you're so much better at managing a household. My husband shuffled past with another box, still avoiding eye contact. Mom's contractor says it could be 3 months, maybe 4. 4 months. The words came out strangled. Maximum 6, Marjorie called from the kitchen, where she was already opening cabinets. Oh dear, we'll need to reorganize these. The flow is all wrong. I followed Michael into the guest room, closing the door behind us. When exactly were you planning to discuss this with me? Annie, what was I supposed to do? She's my mother. She needs help. She needs help, or she needs a servant. I kept my voice low, controlled. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like another power play. Don't start. He set down the boxes with a thud. You always do this, turn everything into some kind of conspiracy. Because it usually is. Remember Thanksgiving? When she reorganized our entire kitchen without asking. Or Christmas, when she invited 20 people to our house without telling me. The sound of cabinets opening and closing drifted through the door. My kitchen. My space. My sanctuary. She's family, Michael said, as if those 2 words explained everything, excused everything. And what am I? He sighed, that familiar, dismissive sigh that made me want to scream. Can we not do this now? Mom's had a rough time since Dad died. She's lonely. She's manipulative, I corrected. And you enable her. 4 months, he said, heading for the door. It's just 4 months. Please, for me. I watched him walk away, like he always did when things got uncomfortable. Through the open door, I could hear Marjorie humming as she rearranged my kitchen, claiming my territory 1 cabinet at a time. 4 months. 6, maximum, she'd said. But I knew better. This was just the beginning. Marjorie hadn't come here because of black mold, she'd come here to take control. To reshape my life into something that suited her better. To turn me into the dutiful daughter-in-law she'd always wanted. I walked to the window and watched Michael carrying in more boxes, efficient and obedient, just like she'd trained him to be. My fingers traced the cool glass, and I made myself a promise, this would be the last time Marjorie steamrolled over my life. The last time Michael chose his mother's comfort over my happiness. They wanted a dutiful daughter-in-law. Fine. I'd give them exactly what they wanted, right up until the moment I didn't. Let the games begin, Marjorie. Let the games begin. 3 weeks into Marjorie's invasion, I found myself hiding in my own pantry, pressing my forehead against a shelf of canned tomatoes while my sister-in-law Laura's voice drifted in from the kitchen. "Mother, you're absolutely brilliant. I don't know why we didn't think of this years ago." I held my breath, careful not to disturb the tower of reorganized spice jars Marjorie had alphabetized yesterday, without asking, of course. "Well, darling, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." Marjorie's chair scraped against my newly scratched hardwood floors. "Annabelle's always been so capable. It would be selfish of her not to help family, wouldn't it? And with Thomas traveling so much for work, I'll need someone to look after me when the baby comes." My hand froze on its way to the door handle. "Baby? What baby?" "Now, Laura, don't get ahead of yourself. First, we need to make sure Annabelle understands her responsibilities to this family. Michael's far too soft with her, lets her work those ridiculous hours at that consulting firm. She's always so proud of her career," Laura said, voice dripping with disdain. "As if spreadsheets are more important than family." I pressed my ear closer to the door. "That's why this renovation delay is perfect," Marjorie continued. "By the time the contractor finishes the work, Annabelle will be used to taking care of everything. It's really for her own good, gives her purpose." The sound of ceramic clinked against wood, my grandmother's teacups, I realized. The ones Marjorie had declared too precious to stay hidden in the cabinet. "And once she's settled into her proper role," Marjorie added, "we can discuss your situation. After all, a pregnant woman needs support." My fingers curled into fists. So that was their game, use this fake renovation to transform me into their personal servant. Just in time for Laura's conveniently timed pregnancy announcement. "Thomas doesn't know yet," Laura said quickly. "About the baby. Or that I might be pregnant. I mean, I'm not sure yet. Details, darling. The important thing is getting everything in place. Now, about that spare bedroom, I think if we move Annabelle's home office." I'd heard enough. I slipped out of the pantry and up the back stairs, careful to skip the creaky third step. In our bedroom, I found Michael packing for another convenient business trip. "When were you going to tell me about Laura's baby?" I asked. He fumbled his tie. "What baby?" "The one your sister and mother are downstairs planning my life around." "I don't know what you're talking about." He turned back to his suitcase, but I caught the tension in his shoulders. "Your mother's renovation is fake, isn't it?" "Annie." "Don't Annie me. Answer the question." He sighed, that familiar sound of surrender that made my teeth ache. "Mom's just going through a rough time. She needs structure, routine. And I need my life back." I moved between him and the suitcase. "Your sister isn't even pregnant yet, and they're already planning to move my office to make room for her. You're being paranoid." He tried to step around me. "Mom just wants to feel useful. And if Laura is pregnant?" "If? So you did know." His silence was answer enough. "When does it stop, Michael? When do I get to matter as much as they do? You always make everything so dramatic." He zipped his suitcase with more force than necessary. "It's just family helping family." "No," I said quietly, "it's your family steamrolling mine. And you're letting them do it." He picked up his suitcase, checked his watch. "I have to catch my flight. We can talk about this when I get back." But we wouldn't. We never did. As I watched him hurry down the stairs, I heard Marjorie's voice rise to greet him, followed by Laura's theatrical goodbye. The perfect mother, the needy sister, and the son who couldn't see the puppet strings. I walked to my home office, my space, my sanctuary, and ran my fingers along my desk. They wanted to take this too, turn it into a nursery for a baby that might not even exist. Well, let them try. I opened my laptop and began to type, documenting every conversation, every manipulation, every little power play. They thought they were setting a trap, but they'd forgotten something crucial. The best revenge is served with careful planning and impeccable documentation. The engagement party invitation arrived like a perfectly timed bomb, cream-colored cardstock wrapped in a silk ribbon. I found it propped against my coffee mug, the one Marjorie had relocated to the proper cabinet. Isn't it wonderful? Laura materialized beside me, designer heels clicking against the floor. Thomas insisted on announcing it properly, though I wanted something more intimate. I studied the invitation, noting the familiar layout. Interesting. This looks exactly like the design I used for the Clayton merger celebration last month. Laura's smile flickered. Oh. I wouldn't know. I just gave the designer some general ideas. Really? I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my work portfolio. Because it's identical. Down to the custom font I commissioned. The kitchen door swung open, and Thomas strode in, bringing a burst of fresh air and authenticity. Morning, all. Laura, darling, did you tell them about the promotion? Laura's face went pale. Thomas, not now. The regional director position. He continued, oblivious to her distress. The one you said Annabelle helped you prepare for. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate care. What promotion? The one you've been mentoring her for, Thomas said, frowning. Laura said you've been helping her develop client presentations, sharing your strategies. Thomas, please. Laura's voice cracked. Understanding dawned in his eyes as he looked between us. Laura, you told me Annabelle was supporting your career advancement. That she was helping you compete for my company's director position. She was, Laura stammered. In a way. I mean, I learned so much just watching her. Watching me. The pieces clicked into place, the missing client files, the mysteriously similar presentations. The contracts that mimicked mine down to the comma placement. You've been stealing my work. Not stealing. Laura's voice rose an octave. Adapting. Learning. You're always so selfish with your success. What's all this commotion? Marjorie swept in, already dressed for her weekly charity lunch. Laura, darling, you're shaking. Annabelle's trying to ruin everything, Laura sobbed. Just because I used a few of her ideas. A few? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. You copied my entire portfolio. You're using my work to interview at Thomas's company. Now, Annabelle, Marjorie stepped between us, surely you're overreacting. Laura's simply trying to better herself. By committing corporate espionage. Thomas's voice had gone cold. Do you understand what this could do to my reputation? To the company? Michael knows. Laura blurted out. He said it was fine, that family helps family. The kitchen went silent. Even Marjorie seemed stunned by this revelation. When? I asked quietly. When did my husband give you permission to steal my work? Last month, Laura whispered. When he helped me copy your presentation files. Thomas set down his briefcase. I need to make some calls. Laura, we'll discuss this later. The kitchen door swung shut behind him with quiet finality. Now look what you've done, Marjorie hissed. Laura was finally getting her life together, and you had to ruin it with your petty jealousy. I turned to her, really looked at her, seeing the desperation behind her perfect facade. You knew too, didn't you? That's why you moved in, to help Laura access my files while I was at work. We did what was necessary, Marjorie lifted her chin. Laura deserves the same opportunities you've had. Opportunities. My voice shook. I worked 15 years for my position. 15 years of late nights and sacrificed weekends. And you helped her steal it because, what? She deserves it more. Family first, Marjorie said firmly. Something you've never understood. I looked at them, my sister-in-law still sniffling, my mother-in-law radiating righteous indignation, and felt something inside me snap clean through. You're right, I said, reaching for my phone. I never understood your version of family. But I understand corporate law just fine. I dialed my company's legal department. And now everyone else will understand it too. Laura's sob caught in her throat. Marjorie's face went slack with shock. But for the first time in weeks, my hands were steady, my purpose clear. Let them call it betrayal. I called it justice. Michael came home 3 days after the corporate espionage revelation. I heard his key in the lock at midnight, followed by the familiar shuffle of his briefcase hitting the floor. The house was dark except for my laptop's glow in the kitchen. You're still up, he said, hovering in the doorway. Funny how insomnia hits when you discover your husband helped steal your life's work. I didn't look up from the screen, where Laura's copied presentations sat side by side with my originals. The company lawyers called me today. I know. They called me first. He moved closer, his shadow falling across my keyboard. Annie, you have to drop the complaint. Laura's career. Laura's career. Now I did look up. What about mine? The one you helped her steal. She's my sister. She needed help. And I'm your wife. The words tasted bitter. Or did you forget that part when you were copying my files? It wasn't like that. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Laura was struggling. Mom was worried about her. I thought if she had a chance to prove herself. By passing my work off as her own. You're already successful. Laura needs this opportunity more than you do. The casual dismissal of 15 years of my work hit harder than any scream could have. I closed my laptop, stood up slowly. Marjorie's planning a family dinner tomorrow, he continued, misreading my silence. Everyone will be there. If we could just talk this through. Everyone? I asked quietly. Including Thomas. Michael shifted uncomfortably. He's taking some time to think things through. Smart man. I walked to the coffee maker, my third pot tonight. Unlike your sister, who's still pretending she did nothing wrong. She made a mistake. No, Michael. A mistake is copying one presentation. This was months of systematic theft. With your help. The coffee maker gurgled, filling the silence between us. I could feel him watching me, waiting for the familiar pattern, my anger followed by forgiveness. My boundaries crumbling under the weight of family obligation. Mom says. I don't care what Marjorie says. My hands shook as I poured the coffee. I don't care about her dinner, or Laura's tears, or your excuses. I care about the fact that my husband betrayed me, and he still can't see why that matters. You're being dramatic. The coffee mug shattered against the wall, missing his head by inches. We both stared at the dark liquid dripping down the wallpaper Marjorie had insisted on installing last week. Jesus, Annie. Get out. What? Get out of my kitchen. Get out of my house. My voice was steady now, eerily calm. Go stay with your mother, since her opinions matter more than your marriage. You don't mean that. He stepped toward me, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. You're upset, I understand, but... Do you know what the company lawyers told me today? I interrupted. That because you helped Laura access my files, I could be held liable for corporate espionage. I could lose everything, my job, my reputation, my entire career, because you decided your sister deserved my life more than I did. The color drained from his face. They can't. They can. And they might. I walked to the door, held it open. So get out, Michael. Go to your family dinner. Tell them all how unreasonable I'm being. But don't come back tonight. Or tomorrow. Or until you figure out why what you did was wrong. Annie, please. And tell your mother her renovation contractor called. Apparently, there was never any black mold. Funny how these things come out, isn't it? He stood there, mouth opening and closing, the perfect picture of a man caught between lies. Finally, he walked past me, pausing at the threshold. We're family, he said softly. That has to count for something. I watched him walk away, feeling the last threads of our marriage unraveling with each step. It counted for everything, I whispered to the empty doorway. Until you proved it meant nothing at all. The cafe was neutral territory, which is why Thomas suggested meeting here. I watched him stir his untouched coffee, his engagement ring catching the afternoon light. Laura's been placed on administrative leave, he said finally. The company's investigating all her previous work. And mine. I pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Everything she copied, everything Michael helped her access. 3 years of my work, rebranded as hers. Thomas flipped through the pages, his jaw tightening. She told me she was collaborating with you. That you were mentoring her. Funny kind of mentoring where the student steals the teacher's entire portfolio. He closed the folder, pushed it back. I ended the engagement last night. That stopped me. Thomas. Don't apologize. Please. He ran a hand over his face. I should have seen it sooner. The inconsistencies in her stories, the way Marjorie orchestrated everything. Speaking of Marjorie. I pulled out my phone, played the recording I'd made last night. Marjorie's voice filled our quiet corner, discussing her plans to contest her late husband's will, using documents Michael had helped her backdate. Thomas's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. That's fraud. That's family. The bitterness surprised even me. At least, their version of it. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom's crying. Laura's devastated. Please come home. We can fix this. I showed Thomas the message. He shook his head. They're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry they got caught. I know. I switched off my phone. That's why I met with a divorce lawyer this morning. Annabelle. I also spoke to the executor of my father-in-law's estate. I pulled out another folder. Turns out Marjorie's been living quite comfortably on money that should have gone to Michael's younger cousins. Money she convinced Michael to help her hide. Thomas whistled low. You've been busy. I learned from the best. I smiled without humor. Marjorie taught me everything about gathering intelligence on family members. She just never thought I'd use it against her. What's your endgame here? I traced the rim of my coffee cup, considering. They wanted to take my life, my career, my home, my independence. I'm just returning the favor. That's not an answer. No, I agreed. But it's all I have right now. My phone buzzed again, Laura this time, probably calling to beg or threaten. I let it ring. They're having another family dinner tonight, Thomas said quietly. Laura called me 7 times about it. Marjorie's insisting everyone attend, to work things out. Of course she is. I stood, gathering my files. Nothing says family healing like forced confrontation over pot roast. Are you going? I paused, remembering countless dinners where I'd swallowed my pride along with Marjorie's overcooked meat. Where Michael had watched silently as his mother and sister chipped away at my dignity. Yes, I said finally. But not for the reasons they think. Thomas stood too, reaching for his wallet. Want backup? You do that. After everything. I spent 2 years watching them manipulate everyone around them. Maybe it's time someone manipulated back. I studied him, this man who should have been my brother-in-law, who chose truth over family loyalty. Dinner's at 7. Bring your appetite for justice. He laughed, but it wasn't entirely humorous. And what should I tell Laura when she calls again? I gathered my coat, thinking of all the evidence in my briefcase, all the carefully documented betrayals. Tell her to enjoy her mother's cooking. It might be the last family dinner for a while. As we left the cafe, I felt lighter somehow. Not because of the revenge I was planning, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't facing this family alone. Sometimes, I realized, the family you choose is stronger than the family you marry into. And sometimes, justice tastes better than pot roast. Marjorie's dining room looked like a war room disguised as a family gathering. My evidence folders sat beside my plate like unexploded grenades, while Thomas's presence at my right felt like borrowed armor. Shall we pray before dinner? Marjorie's voice dripped false piety. For family healing. Why stop the deception now? I opened the first folder. We're all so good at pretending. Michael's hand froze on his water glass. Annie, please. No. I laid out the first document, Marjorie's fake renovation contract. Let's talk about healing. Let's start with the lies that brought us here. Laura's mascara was already smudging. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Thomas's voice cut through the tension. Unless you'd prefer to discuss your creative interpretation of corporate authorship. You don't understand, Marjorie interjected, reaching for her wine. Everything I've done, everything we've done, was for this family's benefit. Benefit? I pulled out the estate documents. Like stealing from Michael's cousins. Or helping Laura steal my work. Which benefit are we discussing? The color drained from Michael's face. What cousins? The ones your mother convinced you to disinherit. I slid the papers toward him. Remember signing these? Backdating them? Mother? Michael turned to Marjorie, who was suddenly very interested in her napkin. It was complicated, she murmured. Your father wouldn't have wanted. Don't. Laura's voice cracked. Don't bring Dad into this. Why not? I stood, my chair scraping back. He's the reason for all of this, isn't he? The perfect family man who left you feeling inadequate, Marjorie. The father whose approval you never quite earned, Laura. The standard Michael can't live up to. Shut up. Laura slammed her hands on the table. You don't know anything about us. I know everything. My voice was steady, even as my hands shook. Every manipulation, every lie, every little power play. I documented it all. For what? Michael asked quietly. Revenge? Justice. I pulled out my phone, showed them the email from my lawyer. The estate executor is reopening the will. The company's launching a full investigation. It's all coming down. Marjorie's wine glass shattered on the floor. You ungrateful. Mother, don't. Michael's voice held a new edge. Is it true? Did you make me help you steal from my cousins? I protected you. Marjorie's facade cracked. Everything I've done was to protect this family. By destroying mine. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my ears. By moving into my home. Stealing my work. Turning my husband against me. You never belonged here. Marjorie's words cut like glass. You were never good enough for my son. No, Mother. Michael stood slowly. I was never good enough for her. The silence that followed felt like a tomb sealing shut. The police are coming, I said quietly. The fraud division. I called them before dinner. Laura's sob broke the silence. You can't. I already did. I gathered my folders. They'll want to talk to everyone. About the estate fraud, the corporate espionage, all of it. We're family, Marjorie whispered, but the word held no power anymore. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Annie. Michael reached for me. We can fix this. Together. I stepped back, bumping into Thomas, who steadied me with a gentle hand. That's the problem, Michael. You still think this can be fixed. I moved toward the door as red and blue lights began flashing through the windows. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be finished. You'll regret this, Marjorie called after me. When you're alone. I've been alone for years. I turned back one last time, watching their perfect family facade crumble as police cars pulled into the driveway. The only difference is now I'm choosing it. Thomas followed me out, past the arriving officers, into the cool night air. Behind us, I could hear Marjorie's protests, Laura's sobs, Michael's quiet answers to loud questions. Are you okay? Thomas asked softly. I watched my marriage, my family, my past dissolve in red and blue lights. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. Sometimes healing starts with an ending. And sometimes revenge tastes exactly like freedom. The courthouse hallway felt like a funeral parlor, all hushed voices and careful steps. I sat on a wooden bench, watching Marjorie's lawyer whisper urgently to her across the hall. Laura huddled nearby, mascara already smudged, while Michael paced between us like a ghost haunting his own life. Thomas arrived first, carrying a briefcase I recognized, the one Laura had always claimed contained her original work. Last chance, he announced, his voice echoing off marble walls. Come clean now, or I show everything. Laura's head snapped up. You wouldn't. Try me. He set the briefcase on the bench beside me. Every draft, every email, every conversation where you admitted stealing Annabelle's work. It wasn't stealing, Marjorie interjected. It was family helping family. Is that what you told the cousins you defrauded? I asked quietly. That you were helping. Michael stopped pacing. Mother, what did you do? What I had to. Marjorie's perfect makeup couldn't hide her desperation now. Your father always loved them more, gave them everything. So you took it back. Michael's voice cracked. Made me help you take it. You signed those papers willingly, she snapped. Don't pretend you're innocent. None of us are innocent. Laura stood, smoothing her designer skirt, bought with stolen success. But some of us are better at hiding it. Right, Annabelle? I met her gaze steadily. I never hid anything. You just never bothered to see me. Because you were too busy being perfect. Laura's voice rose. Perfect wife, perfect career, perfect life. Perfect victim, Thomas interrupted. Until now. The courtroom doors opened. Our lawyers emerged, faces grim. The judge is ready, my attorney said. All parties. Wait. Michael stepped forward. Annie, please. We can still fix this. Can we? I stood, gathering my files. Can you give me back the years I spent trying to earn your mother's approval? The career your sister tried to steal. The marriage you let die. I love you. No. The word echoed like a gunshot. You love the idea of me. The perfect wife who never complained, never fought back, never demanded more than scraps of your attention. That's not true. Then prove it. I handed him a folder. Testify. Tell the truth about what your mother made you do. What you helped Laura do. Marjorie's heel click stopped abruptly. Michael, don't you dare. Or what, mother? He turned to her, and for the first time, I saw steel in his spine. You'll disown me. Like you did to the cousins. I protected you. You controlled him, I corrected. Like you tried to control me. But here's the thing about control, Marjorie, it only works if we let it. The courtroom doors loomed before us, dark wood and brass handles gleaming under fluorescent lights. Last chance, Thomas repeated, softer now. Tell the truth, or I will. Laura's sob echoed off marble. Thomas, please. The truth, Laura. For once. She crumpled like paper in rain. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry isn't enough. I reached for the courtroom door. Not anymore. Annie. Michael's voice stopped me. What do you want? Really? I turned back one last time, seeing them clearly, the controlling mother, the desperate sister, the husband who never quite learned to stand alone. I want justice, I said simply. And then I want to forget you all exist. The courtroom door opened with a groan of hinges. Inside, a judge waited to hear our stories, of fraud and theft, of manipulation and betrayal, of a family built on lies finally facing truth. Shall we? Thomas held the door, his presence steady beside me. I stepped forward, leaving behind the whispers and pleas, the false promises and hollow apologies. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying others, it's about saving yourself. And sometimes, justice is the sweetest revenge of all. Behind me, I heard Michael's footsteps following, then Laura's, then Marjorie's. Each step like nails in the coffin of their perfect family facade. The truth was about to have its day in court. And I was finally ready to tell it. The divorce papers arrived on the same morning as the newspaper headline. Local business dynasty faces fraud charges. I signed my freedom into existence while drinking coffee from my grandmother's china, the only thing I'd taken from my old house besides my clothes and dignity. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas, Marjorie's being charged. Laura took a plea deal. You okay? The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who should have been my enemy had become my strongest ally. Better than okay, I replied, then set my phone aside to enjoy the silence of my new apartment. No manipulative mother-in-law rearranging my cabinets. No sister-in-law stealing my work. No husband avoiding conflict by avoiding me entirely. The doorbell rang. Michael stood there, looking smaller somehow, clutching a manila envelope. The cousin's lawyers contacted me, he said without preamble. I'm testifying against Mother. I studied him, this man I'd loved, this stranger I'd married. Why now? Because you were right. He shifted, uncomfortable with truth-telling after so many years of evasion. About everything. Mother's control, Laura's theft, my cowardice. Took you long enough. Annie. Don't. I held up a hand. We're not doing that scene. The one where you apologize, promise to change, beg for another chance. I wasn't going to. He pulled papers from his envelope. These are the records Mother kept. Of everything. I thought. Maybe they'd help your case. I accepted the envelope but didn't open it. Why are you really here, Michael? To say thank you. His voice cracked. For showing me what courage looks like. The words hung between us like smoke from a finally extinguished fire. I heard Laura's firm fired her, he continued. And Thomas. He's been kind, helping with the legal stuff. He's good at seeing through lies, I said. Better than I was. No. Michael shook his head. You saw everything. You just loved us enough to hope we'd change. Love isn't enough without respect. I know that now. He turned to leave, then paused. Mother's selling the house. Moving in with Laura. They'll have to take care of each other now. I thought of Marjorie and Laura, forced to face life without their usual weapons of manipulation and theft. Karma's funny that way. Yeah. He smiled sadly. Goodbye, Annie. I watched him walk away, noticing how straight his spine was now that he'd finally chosen truth over family loyalty. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. Marjorie's investment accounts had been frozen. Laura's plea deal included full restitution. The cousins were getting their inheritance back. Justice, served cold but complete. I carried my coffee to the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city wake up. Below, a mother and daughter argued on a bench, their voices carrying up like a reminder of what I'd escaped. The daughter stormed off. The mother watched her go. Neither chased the other. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes revenge means stepping back and letting consequences unfold naturally. My laptop chimed with an email, a job offer from a competing firm, one that had followed my case closely. They valued integrity, they said. And courage. I thought about Marjorie, who tried to make me small enough to control. About Laura, who tried to steal what she couldn't earn. About Michael, who'd finally learned to stand alone too late for us. The morning sun felt warm on my face as I typed my acceptance. Not because I needed to prove anything anymore, but because I wanted to. Because I could. My phone buzzed one last time, Thomas asking if I wanted to get coffee, strictly as friends. I smiled, thinking how strange life was. How the family you choose sometimes appears in the ruins of the family you lost. I texted back a simple, yes. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself, piece by piece, until you're too strong to break again. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma does your revenge for you.